Hello, this is Ryan Reiser, your host. This is going to be a very different podcast series than anything you've experienced on the market. What I'm trying to do is change things up a little bit. Rather than having a special guest and one topic with great conversation that goes away, we're going to host a series of experts and others who have perspective on different topics over a period of time. Gather that in a series of episodes and roll that out until we've really exhausted a topic. So hopefully you enjoy this podcast, and thanks again for listening in.
All right, really excited for this next guest on this topic. We've got James. Say what? Buckley.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that intro. Say what sales. It's a big thing. I love it. A lot of people have been throwing the say what at me. So that's good. That means it's doing well.
I used to love commenting, right? If you're a salesperson, we're the same person. So really excited to have you here today. Obviously on this topic, you've got a ton of background, right? As a salesperson, as a sales leader, and now as a part of JBarrows. So this could be really exciting. So just get right into it. Hey, do you believe in the rise of this new revenue intelligence coaching culture movement? What do you think of this?
So I think revenue intelligence is a great term in general. And the reason I feel that way is because with many things in sales, there's uncertainty. With a lot of what we think to be really successful best practices for sales, we find that it's not so certain after all. So revenue intelligence, the more you know, right? The more you know, the more effective you can be. As far as coaching goes, I think the coaching movement in general is interesting because you can be a manager and you can be a sales rep. You can even be a leader. But being a coach is something totally different, and it requires a lot of attention. I think some people have the wrong idea about what it is to be a coach.
Okay, that's good. So there's a lot to unpack there. Other guests have had a mixed feedback on getting right into that question. You get right into it, right? There's a buzzword around potentially revenue intelligence, but it's clearly defined around understanding your revenue. And then coaching, what is that? That's really good. So why do you think that there's a movement around, these two things? And are they one and the same? Are they different? And specifically around tech. I mean, you deal with a lot of companies, but why do you think there's a movement starting now?
So I do work with a lot of companies, and I think that revenue intelligence is definitely on the rise. But I think it started to become popular with the birth of this chief revenue officer that sort of like took over all the financial stuff. And now we're starting to see, my experience is showing me that CRO, that particular title, is being kind of like less and less prominent. And we're seeing more sales enablement. We're seeing more enablement and marketing enablement. We're seeing SDRs sort of move around from marketing to sales or become like an amalgamation of both. So, and tech, I think SDR started off as cold calling and emails, and now it's become something so much more. It's the tip of the spear. It's the first impression. It's what carries the torch from one team to another, starting it off, closing the deal, and then doing the customer success piece. Those are three different teams, but the SDR is kind of like sprinkled in all through it. So in the tech space specifically, I think that it's catching fire because we can track things back to an initial source. And when we see engagement at each individual level, we can track all that and say, well, this is made for a great experience for our customer. That's why I think it's catching fire, is because companies are finally starting to say, this is the path our great customers took, and we want to give that same path to every customer moving forward. That's why I think it's becoming so popular.
So that speaks to, I think, the the revenue intelligence piece, which goes up to the idea of CRO. Oh shoot, in B2B, we never really had somebody that really focused on revenue or merging sales and marketing. Oh wow, there's this role SDR, and then we can kind of merge between these two, or whatever you want to call that. But how does the coaching side come into this? Because I think that's a whole nother can of worms, right? So if it's all about, hey, this is how we found and brought in our customers, we served them, they were good, let's go, rinse, repeat. That's kind of the old marketing way. where does coaching come into play here, or, does it?
Yes, it definitely does. I think coaching comes into play when you start talking to reps about what was said in successful deals and what to avoid when you learn what not to say in unsuccessful deals. So there's this element of a person that is the knowledge carrier, and their whole role, the whole job is to share that knowledge with team members. So if you have a very specific conversation that's taking place, most account executives have a very similar conversation with a lot of their prospects. If that coach can analyze the data and look at what's being put into the bank account as closed opportunities, and they can tie things that were said to those closed opportunities that we should say more often, and then they can look at those failed opportunities and say, well, this was said pretty frequently in all 10 of these opportunities, so I think we just need to stop saying that.